Irresponsible, Betrayal, and Constitutional Breach. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's get started. So, there are a bunch of topics that I want to talk about today. First, I want to make a correction. In the previous episode, I only talked about Elon Musk threatening, or at least talking about how easy it would be for him to shut off Starlink and by doing that completely leave Ukraine defenseless. Well, that was a headline. But then later on, not much later, he made a comment in one of those posts saying that, I would not, no matter what happens, I would never shut Starlink. Well, you know what that does when you are the owner of the platform where you're spreading your disinformation, if you start fighting with the Polish foreign minister, talk about threat in a way that threatens or at least points out the vulnerability that Ukraine has when it comes to Elon Musk's power over them, Starlink, and when the foreign minister replies with how Europe could tackle this, he belittles Poland's foreign minister, and then in another separate post says that he would never take Starlink down. That's bad messaging. That is disengaging. That is unclear. Elon Musk perhaps thinks that all of those things, everybody's getting that information because in his mind, what he wants is that everybody listens to him all the time. But that's sort of how autocrats and despots and oligarchs work. It's this psychopathic ideology where, the entire universe circles around them. But obviously, that's not what happens when, Elon Musk goes on a rant and then breaks it down in different places in his posts to say that he would never the fear that would instill in Ukrainians when they hear that is sufficient enough trauma. For him to later say that he would never do that, okay, fine. But it is being irresponsible. It is an irresponsible betrayal of the responsibility that Elon Musk took when he decided he would offer Starlink and Europe started paying him for Starlink. And evidently they only paid the fraction of the cost. So Elon Musk should publicize and make public how much that Starlink subscription costs Ukraine per year, so we may know where the money's coming from. Then Elon Musk talks ill of Senator Kelly of Arizona, who is a senator now, was an astronaut, and calls him a traitor for going on a trip to Ukraine. Well, if you were neutral about Ukraine, you wouldn't be talking this way about Ukraine, and you wouldn't be attacking American heroes and senators who take official trips to foreign countries to determine what and how America can do to help our allies. So it's important to see what Elon Musk is doing by flip-flopping on what he's saying. You realize he's going about this manic sort of episode of talking about how he can turn off Starlink, then later on saying in a separate comment how he would never do that, and then going and attacking Senator Kelly for going to Ukraine, calling him a traitor. How is that being a traitor for going to Ukraine? Like, what's the logic behind it? Or is this some sort of ketamine logic that we're never going to get? I want to talk about that. I wanted to remind you that the VA benefits and VA services are being cut by 35%. And we just learned today that Marco Rubio's State Department plans to cut 83% of US aid programs and just cancel them. What happens to those contracts? What's the fallout from those contracts? What are the programs that are being impacted? What are the programs that are going to remain? Are we still going to preserve the HIV prevention campaign that we have around the world? Are we still going to keep the food programs that we provide to starving nations? Is Ebola prevention and other extremely contagious disease prevention part of our current budget that will, our current, programs? That's what 17% of programs left over. And what happens to the ruling of Judge Ali and then the Supreme Court and then Judge Ali that, the deadline for unfreezing those funds has already passed? Why are those funds still frozen? Are we at that place where we see that Donald Trump defying a Supreme Court order? Because Donald Trump is doing a lot of things that are raising a lot of red flags. So a Palestinian activist who is a grad student in Columbia University was arrested for organizing the protest against Israeli aggression on Gazan civilians. This man is also a green card holder, but he was detained by ICE, and now he has been sent to Louisiana from New York, where he's a green card holder. So that is a violation of the First Amendment, free speech, and freedom to peaceably assemble and have our grievances heard. That peaceful assembly to protest, it's a on the face violation of that. Then you see Donald Trump threatening law firms about taking clients who may, have a lawsuit or a cause of action against the government. Therefore, attacking the First Amendment's protection of speech, of who you can talk to, and association of who you can choose to be your whatever it is, lawyer, doctor. And also, it is encumbering on the Sixth Amendment right to counsel. Then we have Donald Trump's attack on birthright citizenship and saying that somebody's not in the jurisdiction thereof if they're undocumented. No, if they've lived here and if they have followed the laws, paid the taxes, then they are subject to the laws of the jurisdiction, and their children, even if they are undocumented, are birthright citizens of the United States under the 14th Amendment. And there's nothing that can take away birthright citizenship for those who are born in the United States. And, the Social Security Administration was going to do some radical shift of the fact that you couldn't get birth certificates at the hospital and make kids go to the DMV, the child, after birth when they are not fully robust. They are vulnerable to diseases. You want to take them to the Social Security Administration to get their birth certificate within a month of them being born. That's an undue burden, and the government went back on that. So it is not it is, and I believe that was one of the things that they wanted to do to try to stem, try to get in the way of birthright citizenship by denying birth certificates to, infants who are born to undocumented or even temporary visa residents of the United States, even legal residents of the United States. Then there's the impending sort of thought, this ominous thought that Donald will do his best to violate the 22nd Amendment and run for a third term. Well, that's on its face unconstitutional. You have had 2 terms. You cannot be in office more than 8 years. That was codified. That was not codified. That was ratified into a constitutional amendment, which is the highest law of the land. Then there's Donald's overreaching into Article 1. Then there's Donald not taking care to faithfully execute the laws by not enforcing the statutes. And then his discrimination against the trans community, against women, is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 5th and 14th Amendments, of the 5th Amendment when he's doing it. If it's other states, then it's the 14th Amendment. But these attacks on people's rights that different states are now going to take on once there's a ban on trans people in the federal government by executive order, that is a slippery slope to states starting to bring up laws like that to ban transgender people anywhere. I said they're going to expand from the military. They have. They've gone into schools. They've now gone into cutting funding from education programs because of that. So the attack continues. And the assault on our, what we are as a society continues. And as I said, few days after the election, J.D. Vance came out and talked about how Joe Biden's economy was a dumpster fire. And that's when I said, remember, this is going to come back when their economy, Trump's economy, starts failing. What did Trump do? He came in and he started to find ways of undoing everything Biden has done. He put a stop to most of those things. And then he started to put out the whole tariff thing, the illegal immigration thing. Then came Doji and their firings of hundreds of thousands of federal workers. And all of these things culminate into sort of a perfect storm. And then the tariffs on Mexico, Canada, China, and thinking about other countries. That what that steering has done is steer the economy away from Biden's economy into what is squarely Trump's economy. Something that is very difficult to do because economies, generally they sort of go up and down and up and down, and it takes a while for one economy of one president to go wane away while the new president's incumbent's economic policies become clear. But that's not the case here, because Donald Trump is actively sabotaging the previous administration and all of the previous administrations and working as a unitary executive who is ruling by executive order, that all of which go beyond what Doji and Elon Musk can do and what the president can do under his powers under Article 2. So once you employ all of those mechanisms to bring recession back, you're not making America great again. You are bringing recession back. You know why? Because during Biden's presidency and before the election, there was a 0% chance of recession. Even during the transition period after the election, there was a 0% chance of recession. And after Donald Trump took office, now, within 7 weeks, there's a 100% chance of a recession. and the markets are rattling and the prices keep going up. So that is not Biden's recession. And this sort of playing of words that even in Biden's administration, when the stock market was doing good, it was because, everybody thought Trump was going to come back, and it was because of Trump. That's what Trump was saying. And now, squarely within his administration, when his policies have brought recession to our doors, he's now blaming Biden for the Biden recession. So that is the state of what Donald Trump is doing, this irresponsible, constitutionally illegal movement within our government to unhinge and dismantle everything it can, whether that be a constitutional amendment or the separation of powers instilled in the first 3 articles of our government, whether it be not enforcing the law and unfreezing the funds that Supreme Court has ruled the foreign aid to be frozen, then announcing you are going to cut 83% of U.S. aid. Don't know if they were specifically appropriated by Congress or not. If they were, then I don't know. That is unconstitutional. That is illegal to do. If it wasn't, it's part of just U.S. AIDS programs, then yeah, it's an executive decision. But the funds have to be released. The $2 billion fund that was awarded to the USA program by Congress must be released. Because there are people around the world who rely on it. And there are programs that I'm praying to God, like HIV prevention and food programs that really, really, really need to stick around so that there is not pandemonium all around the world and wars don't break out because of famine. As we see this dismantling of our soft power and our ability to help those in need develop into becoming resilient communities and countries, Donald Trump's approach is that only rich people can come into the United States if you have $5 million. And I'm assuming with the price of eggs going where they are, only multimillionaires will be able to afford eggs during Easter time for making, painted eggs or whatever else that they do. So I want to let you know that we are now vulnerable. Our country is more vulnerable than it was right after 9/11. Because the attack is happening every single day from within. And it's happening in broad daylight. And it's happening in a gray area that's a twilight zone where many courts have determined that Donald Trump doesn't have the power to do what he's doing. A few have said that he does have that power. And the Supreme Court has sent out sort of a enigmatic, is the best way to put it, shadow opinion saying that those funds have to be released for U.S. aid. And he still hasn't released them. So are we on the precipice of a constitutional crisis? The attack is coming from within. Be aware of that. Tell people about that. Point out where the lies are. Check out the news and other independent media and engage citizens to see what I'm saying, whether what I'm saying is true or not. Cross-check, cross-reference, re-verify, learn the truth, and then stand up for our country and the rule of law. Because without it, we're not going to have the society that we have grown accustomed to. We don't realize how close we are to normalcy going away for good. And that's not hyperbole. With that said, sorry for sort of closing on such a depressive note. Please like and subscribe and share, and I'll talk to you soon.